is being? I don't know. I often look at the world and kind of realize that I'm here. Kind of realize that I exist. And that's so easy to overlook, but you're like, what's going on here? You know? As a scientist or someone, who's been interested in and studied the physical world, I've grown accustomed to understand things as manifestations of matter, as manifestations of fundamental particles, and that can create a pretty compelling story or picture for what the world is. But the world isn't an electron. The world isn't a quark or a molecule, at least in the way that we learn about it as a picture in a textbook or an equation that describes its dynamics. Really, those are names. That's a map. Even the things we can see with our eyes and touch with our hands, we see this as grass. It has a label. It's how we understand and move through the world. So it might seem like a mundane or weird question to ask, but I find that just posing it and resting in the not knowing can say a lot. And what I mean is, what is this? It is. That we know. That's one thing we know. It is. I experience it. So, can we call it being? Its nature is being. So what is the nature of being? Right? Is being a noun? Not really. Grammatically, being is a verb, I suppose. It's a state of being, a state of existence. It exists as opposed to not exists, because what is non-existent by definition isn't being. So, what is being? We think of ourselves as beings. We are, we exist, we perceive, we experience. But somehow this, which is not my being, it's still being. And if we can talk about all of existence, the entire universe, the entire being, as a being, a becoming, one isness that's broken into all sorts of things that we can categorize using the names that we do and the equations to describe its change, which it all seems to do. What is this one being? Right? It to me, at least, that it quickly, that like universal sort of definition of existence quickly slips into a very spiritual, non-dual type philosophy. But really it seems quite logical if, by definition, the universe is one thing. It's all that is in being. It must be made out of one thing fundamentally, which is being. and being presents itself to us, at least in name, as the fundamental particles seemingly on the outside of our being, and as less tangible, more difficult to describe states of, or expressions or manifestations of being, like feelings and thoughts. But really, in some sense, they share a lot of similarity. They're all transient, and notably, they all exist from our perspective. And as a scientist, that is a weird thing to do, because we try to remove our personal perspective from the equation of experiences as much as possible, because rightly so, in many cases our personal bias can influence experiments. However, I think in the natural sciences in the West, we've really overlooked the fact that everything we perceive is in our being. Every single person has their own copy of the entire universe, right? In some sense, whether you want to think about it as, my brain's projection of my perception, my brain is still hallucinating or projecting an entire world to me. Of course, I'm limited by line of sight and sort of energetic or spatial or temporal resolution in my perception of being, but still, we don't think about this house, that mountain, as being in my being, but it's in my field of perception. And over time, it's made more and more sense to me to think of my being as my field of perception, and really my agency as my focus, my attention, the spotlight within this field of experience, within this field of being that can move around, it can sharpen and it can broaden, it can move outwardly and it can move inwardly. And here comes the other similarity of the states of being that we perceive as external and internal. My attention, my focus, can move seamlessly between the outside and the inside. And of course, this defies some expectations and preconceptions or assumptions we have about our field of experience and all these different labeled parts of it. But the seamless nature is really quite uncanny, and it becomes more apparent in meditation, where you practice this, right? Where you try to move between the raw experience of your sounds, the raw experience of your sights, and the raw experience of the sensations in your body or your thoughts. Pick anything you like, any qualitative experience, manifestation of your being that's in your field of experience. You can move between all of these seamlessly, as if they're all appearing in one space, which is really trippy if you think about it, right? Like, something like the sound we hear, right? Our, call it programming or assumptions, or, very usefully so, if we hear something, it tells us where it is, right? A car drove by, I saw it, and I heard it, and it sounds like it's over there. Or a bird sounds like it's over there. Or the grass I'm playing with sounds like it's over here. But even from a physical standpoint, what I perceive as being elsewhere has to reach my ear. So really I'm hearing it here. So whether it's here or there, it almost doesn't matter. It's all here. It's all here and all now. And it's all changing. And it's inconceivable to the rational mind, to the thinker that we identify with, who tries to put this more holistic story of experience into words, because the linear dualistic framework that the thinker has to conceptualize doesn't operate on the same logic that being does. It's dualistic and it separates, because in concept inherently is dualistic. If you categorize a part of being as being something, it negates its existence, or it negates its being, it negates the rest of the being from this. So there's a separation in there, but being knows no separation. Being knows no boundaries. The boundaries are our own, that we create. They are the symbols that we attach to meaning, that come through the perception of our experience. And they're useful, right? They're useful. We live in a dualistic world, but if we're lost in the dualism, in the separation, we are in ignorance of our true nature, of the nature of being, of the nature of the self in relation to everything else. And it's beautiful and freeing and peaceful and expansive to spend a little bit of time every day, or every second day, whatever feels right, to sit in the undivided nature of your field of experience. Take it easy, guys.